Welcome to the Butterfly Effect Studio. I'm your host, Christian Revenek. As you know, based in the care of three, small changes can have a big impact. The goal of this session is to uncover how leaders and change makers develop their purpose, competencies, and community to achieve a great positive impact. Every of the episode is packed full of ideas you can apply to your own life. In this conversation, I speak to Rob Greenfield, head of Earthtopia and account director at 33 Seconds. And with Earthtopia, he provides planet-saving hacks, news, and solutions for 288,000 followers on TikTok. Really great to have you in the studio.
Thanks, Christian. Yeah, nice to be here.
Rob, tell me a little bit more about your background. What inspired you also, especially now looking at Earthtopia and what you have there as an impact? What inspired you actually on this journey to come to where you are today?
Yeah, so I guess I'm kind of been on a kind of long-winded journey into the environmental space, but it all sort of started when I was at university, went to Cardiff University, and one of the things that I noticed there was that there was a lot of rubbish around my halls, and quite a lot of people, particularly when you move halls into flats, like in your second year, people get rid of a lot of stuff and we're throwing it away. And that just really frustrated me that I'd go to the bins every day and it'd be full of people just throwing away perfectly good things that they could sell on or they could, repurpose. And I kind of thought, well, why don't I do something about it then instead of getting frustrated by it? So I joined a local environmental champions organization where it was a student run
Mm-hmm.
organization that helped students with their recycling, but also when they moved flats or halls to like make sure they weren't just getting rid of stuff, they were either selling it on or giving it to people in need. So we used to go around to halls and we'd help people, basically repurpose their things or recycle properly. And it kind of grew from there. Really, when I left university, I got a lot from that. I think it kind of made me feel empowered, and also I was
Mm-hmm.
helping the local community in the local area. So when I got back home, I started volunteering with some local organisations. For example, London Wildlife Trust. There's a natural park in Camley Street. It's this next to King's Cross station. It's this tiny little park. Right, it's so close to the station you can hear the trains, the announcements. But it's this beautiful oasis in the middle of London, and I would go there on weekends and kind of help with habitat management and also basically encouraging people to come visit. And if people were there and they had questions, I'd kind of help answer those. But that all kind of grew into this. Okay, I'm really enjoying being out and about in the environment and helping the environment, and I wanted to use that as a potential job. And I interned at Forum for the Future, which is like a environmental consultancy, and I was there for a couple of months. Again, we were looking at innovations in climate solutions, and we were trying to find the kind of future things that, if scaled up, would be incredibly powerful. And I massively enjoyed that. But then, as jobs always do, you need money and you need to kind of, just find something that will make ends meet. So I started working in a few jobs that weren't in the environmental space, but I joined 33 Seconds, which I'm at now, which I've been there now for 7 years. 7 years ago. But when I worked there, I wasn't really working on environmental clients. I worked with Amazon and car brands. But slowly but surely, we started to work with more eco-focused brands like WWF and Greenpeace, and that's how it's kind of come full circle now. Is I've managed to work on some incredible campaigns with WWF and with Sky on their kind of net zero commitment. And it all led to Earthtopia, which basically we set up 3 years ago as an agency internally. We wanted to have a positive impact on young people and climate solutions, and we decided as a team, as we had all this expertise with the clients that we work with, and myself being very passionate about the environment, we wanted to kind of use that expertise and put it on TikTok and create really positive and like solutions and action focused content. And that's where Earthtopia grew from, and now has grown into this huge community that I run on a daily basis.
Amazing. So now this looks like it's a sound story. It's so easy. Was it like always this clear? I mean, that you will really, didn't you somehow lose faith or say, hey, nobody will change their behavior or something like that, or say, hey, this doesn't make much sense. And I mean, just imagining when you started at university, this project, this is quite a long time ago. I think the
Mm.
mindset also about sustainability has changed and evolved eventually.
Yeah, massively. I think, recycling was always kind of viewed as this like, we need to do that right. And the rest will follow, or we shouldn't worry about other stuff. But as it's kind of moved on and the climate crisis has moved on, there's so many elements to it that we're only really understanding now the impacts that our food and our clothes and our power is having on the environment. So recycling is really just a drop in the ocean when you think about it. So it has kind of moved on to these, particularly now as well. I think a lot of people are realizing that it's these huge brands and these huge industries that we need to change and we need to come down harder on, because they're the ones that are really causing the most emissions and the most negative impact. And the individual actions that I think it's all part of the same ecosystem. And I think, it takes governments, it takes businesses, and it takes individuals in that order to have a positive impact on the environment. And we all need to do our bit, but it's less so about individual actions and recycling, and it's more so about, well, can I actually change my energy provider? Can I, move my money away from banks? Should I be putting more pressures on my own company that I work at and make sure that they're, going net zero, or they're adhering to certain things that are positive for the environment? So I've come a long way in the kind of, do I think we're on the right path? Will we come out of it? And I have days where I'm super anxious, and climate anxiety is a real issue, particularly amongst young people. And a lot of our communities say how anxious they are about their future and about whether we're putting the planet into a point of no return. But I have days where I worry about that, and I have days where I see some incredible stories and incredible people and like businesses and organizations that are really, they're on the front lines of climate change, and they're creating, or they're creating either products or solutions that we can scale up and we can really use to fight the climate crisis. So I'm still in the middle, I guess, in terms of where I think we might go. I think the next 10 years, maybe even 5 years, are really critical, because we have a short period of time to turn it around. But I've definitely got hope.
What have you seen have been the key arguments for people to actually realize and take action? Because I think the realization part, I think there is a lot of common knowledge around the climate crisis and that we need to do something. But then again, you can argue it's there for centuries, not centuries, but decades actually. So that knowledge is not new. So what do you see now as the key parts actually to raise that engagement and make things actually moving?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of what we do on Earthtopia is we try and make it relatable. And I think everyone knows that you see in the news, like, this is part of the reason why we set up Earthtopia, is because the news is very much, there's wildfires, there's droughts, there's floods, there's these, very visual, the ice caps are melting. There's these visual representations of the problem. It's the world is warming, and we're the cause of it. We're predominantly the cause of it, fossil fuels and man-made CO2 emissions. But I think what it's hard is that there's a disconnect between that and then, well, what am I doing, or what can I do? What is my everyday life impact? But then also, what can I do in my everyday life to have a positive impact? Whether it be, like I said, amongst communities or businesses, or voting against certain policies of your government. So I think it's really important that you try and link those issues to, like, well, this is actually, for instance, there's stats around like fashion, in terms of like, it takes thousands of liters of water to create one pair of jeans. And like, in your mind, you're like, well, that's mad. I never realized that. Like, you're wearing so much water right now just because of the production of cotton or whatever material it might be. So I think just being a bit more conscious of like, buying less things is a big part of making it more relatable. But then also it's the kind of trying to raise awareness now of like the organizations and the businesses that are really bad for the planet and have been operating, like you say, for as long as the climate science has existed. Big corporations have either hushed it or they've tried to cover it up. And there's been loads of studies on how Shell and BP hired the best climate scientists in the world to basically look at the impact, and they kept it all quiet, and they didn't want people to find out. And we're only now realizing how bad those companies have been and how bad they are. So yeah, we're really trying to like raise awareness of that, and then put pressure on those businesses and governments to.
If you're talking about those students, we often like to refer to a circle of influence as an analogy, and which has the three circles of concern, the circle of influence, and circle of control. And the things what we always look in the circle of concern, oh, there's a climate crisis. There is something I can complain about. But then often we don't take action. And we have the circle of influence and the circle of control. And obviously control means the more I can tangibly directly change, like the skills I have and what things I can do and influence other people I indirectly can influence and ask, for example, to do something and collaborate on. And what you described is so beautiful because I think when it comes to a circle of concern, instead of having something outside and I don't do it, just complain, I take it into my circle and I really start working on it. Yeah. But the second thing, to actually have an impact on this, what we want to change, is really this kind of skills, competence to develop them. And you mentioned already a couple of things, but looking backwards, what are, from your perspective, the competence and the skills which help you most actually now to build all that and have that kind of impact? And you mentioned a lot analysis. You mentioned about listening eventually. What from backwards? What is the, from your perspective, helps you the most actually?
Well, I think one part of something that I've realized, I've 3 years ago when I started filming myself in lockdown on, for videos, I was super uncomfortable with it, if I'm perfectly honest. And I hated the idea of that
Yeah.
I would be out there, on social media. And, we do get people that write horrible comments and say climate change isn't real and they have a go at us. And I think you have to have quite a thick skin for that and be, as much as we get hate, we get a lot of love, and a lot of the time we help people. We get a lot of comments where people like, I had a really rough week, or like, I'm really worrying, and this has helped me, bring a bit of positivity and hope. But back to that point, I think one thing that I did quite a lot at school and at university was I was quite a confident public speaker, and I found that actually those skills that I learned speaking in lectures or presenting something was actually really useful for when it came to filming videos of myself, because it kind of helped me. Those skill sets were grounded in, okay, I know how to like read off a script, or I know how to like memorize a line, and that actually was really helpful on camera when you have to learn scripts and remember lines. And I think presentation skills, if you're good at that, you'll be good at going on camera and recording yourself as well. But yeah, another part of my job, I mean, we've often, when we work with clients on my agency side, so I work 33 Seconds as an independent communications agency, and as I mentioned, we've worked with brands in the past like WWF, and what they would do is give us a brief. They would say, we want to achieve this is the key messages, this is like some of the like audience that we want to target, and how would you do it, how would you execute it? And having that in my mind, so like always thinking like, what's the brief, what am I trying to achieve here, what are my objectives, who am I trying to reach, what are the key like pillars or the key messages that I want to land, like that learning that briefing process has been incredibly beneficial when we create videos, because we always look at a video and say, okay, what's the objective of this video, who is the audience we want to reach with it, and like what are some of the key messages we want to pull out. And with TikTok videos, you have to be super sharp and succinct, and I think just always having that mindset of like, what's the objective of this, what's the brief here, and it will really help you form those videos.
So it's really great communication and also storytelling. How did you learn that?
I mean, that has taken a while. I'm going to be honest with you. When we first started the videos, we were very much we would do a lot of eco hacks and kind of very short videos that didn't have much text in or much speaking. But I think as the community has developed, we've started to hone in what people are really interested in, and we get a lot of questions from people saying, "What's your recommendation on this?" or "Will you cover this topic?" And I think we try and break it down to like a headline which is really going to grab someone's attention and go, okay, well, you've piqued my interest, or I don't know about that issue, or I don't know about this solution, as the kind of hook for people to come into the video. And then throughout the video, you'll have incredibly powerful or interesting stats that keeps people attentive to it. And then at the end of the video, we'll have a kind of CTA for our audience. So it'll be comment, let us know in the comments what you think about this solution, or have you ever tried this or done this? And breaking those videos down in a kind of very logical order, it really helps with the storytelling. But I think you've got to be passionate about the topics you talk about as well. Like a big part of what we cover, we try and do topics that we generally like. There's me and two other people who work on Earthtopia, and it's like, if you have a passion point, if you're interested in fashion, in nature, in cars, or in food, like pick that and hone that in and really focus on the stuff that you can talk very confidently and passionately about, because it comes across a lot more authentic. And every industry, every topic area has pros and cons to it. So if there's anything you're really interested in, you want to take a storytelling angle on it, there's going to be an opportunity there.
Amazing. So, but if I understand you correctly, the biggest part of that you actually learn based on the projects you have done. So you took a project, you wanted to do that, and then you see how can we optimize, how can we reach our audience even better, and thought about this process and then build it up from there. Rob, what are now? And it sounds like, again, it sounds a little bit easy from the outside, but what has helped you actually to accomplish that as from looking from a habits perspective? What would you say are your key habits actually you have maybe established or built up to make that sound as easy as to make it actually possible?
There's quite a few, but like some that come to mind is I think always be like looking out for inspiration. Like there's some incredible eco creators and incredible storytellers on social media, not just TikTok, across all the channels. And YouTube is another good example. The content is a lot longer, but actually there's some incredible vloggers who are really eloquent and they're very good at executing videos. So we've always, followed people that we're really interested in and look at how they're doing it. And, are there anything we can learn from this, or ways they're presenting it, or their kind of body language is a good one as well. So I would say, like, keep a close look on people who inspire you and just see how they're doing it, and potentially write down what are some of the key ways they edit videos, or they maybe say things, or what are they opening with. But apart from that, I mean, we also keeping track of the stories is a big part of what I do. There's so many solutions out there, and there's so many news stories about positive things happening. So we have a very robust kind of document where we'll rank everything in order of how powerful we think the message is, or how interesting or timely it is, and we'll try and jump on those and be quite reactive. So I think you have to be quite nimble when it comes to the stuff that we do around solutions, because sometimes they'll be picked up in the media or they won't be, and it's quite topical because there might be a wildfire and then there's a solution to that, and you want to make sure you're covering that in the next week because it's obviously in the news. But yeah, and aside from that, I think we have like a lot of brainstorms. It's quite a collaborative process for us. There's the three of us that work on it. We meet up once a week and we have a sort of trends brainstorm where we look at what's trending on social media, what's happening on TikTok, and just trying to stay on top of what's going on in the world, but also what's going on in social media. So yeah, I'd say be nimble, keep an eye on people that inspire you, and just look at how they're doing it, and then also stay on top of trends and current news.
Amazing, Rob. That's really insightful. And you've mentioned already now the people you worked with, they shaped you. But looking on your journey and your career, who are the people who have influenced you the most, or who you really like built on top, collaborated with eventually?
Yeah, well, I think some of the eco creators we've met in this space. So Sam Bentley is one. You may have heard of him, but he's incredible, and we've met up a few times. There's also a woman called Positively Green, and I've met her a few times, and she's very passionate, very positive, and I think there's a girl called Emma Greenwood. She's a young eco activist, and she's incredible. Like, this was what blows my mind is like I'm 31, but I'm meeting people who are like 19, 20, and they're just as passionate as I am, and they're just as knowledgeable, and they're so young. When I was 20, I didn't really have a clue what was going on, but they've grown up with it now, and I think they're just so engaged and so knowledgeable on this subject. So meeting those people has been incredible, and I think from a career perspective, like I've had some good managers at 33 Seconds who have kind of taught me the basics and helped me develop in the client side of stuff, which I've applied to Earthtopia. And like I say, we're using the briefing process and applying that to Earthtopia is something I learned at 33 Seconds. So I can thank my managers for those, helping me go through that process and applying it to eco content as well.
And the other, so no, I need to come this because I looked at your TikTok feed and it's really tremendous. It's really very inspiring. Yeah. And I think this has a great effect also, like literally even on the planet, I would say, because it's some really concrete life hacks, relevant things where I can take eventually action. maybe, I don't know if, I know we don't have so much time, but maybe you can give some kind of a taste. What was one of the most interesting things, maybe for yourself, um, insights you discovered on your actually journey, and then maybe triggered also a lot of response?
Yeah, well, one that comes up quite a lot is milk. So I think I mean, obviously the meat industry, meat is very carbon intensive, and there's a lot of land use, a lot of water use. There's food grown for animals to eat, which just seems very backwards when you think about it, because the amount of food and land and water used to grow this protein, and then we just eat it, and it doesn't really balance out. But actually, one area that is also quite bad is the dairy industry, and we often do posts around, which is the most sustainable plant-based milk. And it turns out
Yeah.
that people are very opinionated on this topic. So there's people who won't touch plant-based milks because they love dairy milk too much. And I'm actually a big fan of oat milk. It is one of the most sustainable milks out there. But the real kind of hero milk is hemp milk, because hemp is this incredible wonder plant that absorbs loads of carbon as it grows. It doesn't need pesticide. You can use all the elements of the plant, so there's no wastage. But hemp milk is actually quite expensive. It's also quite hard to find, so it's not as accessible as your oat milks and your soy milks. So that was a big one that kind of shocked me, was learning about the milks. And then actually when we would post these videos, just finding that there were people who were like, no, I'm team hazelnut milk, I'm dairy till I die. And other people being like, I've tried oat milk, but I haven't found one I like yet. So that was one element of it. But I mean, there's tons of stuff. The fashion industry is a huge one that I really was shocked to discover
Hmm.
how much waste and pollution and water. And I think what's really good at the moment is that secondhand has become the new normal. Like, most young people, even older people, buy secondhand. They buy vintage. They buy stuff off Depop and Vinted. They go to charity shops, and that's become very much a normalized and almost cool behavior. So that just shows you and I think the eco side of it isn't really front and center for people. It's more, oh, I can make money from it. It's cheaper. The clothes are really cool because they're a bit older, they look a bit cooler. But that side of it, when you start looking at fast fashion and the impact of that was an incredible shock for me, like seeing how bad it was. But actually, the solution is already there, and it's secondhand.
So thank you very much. Just for the audience, if you haven't done this yet, check out the TikTok feed. I think from Rob, it's really very inspiring. Again, also, it's like very tangible what we can do. One thing I learned talking about food is that actually, because it's interestingly in every country, we have different like cultures around food and what tastes well. And typically, I don't know, let's say if you're from China and you don't have typically drink milk, then milk is really disgusting for you. Now, the Germans have a lot of milk. Then maybe some other things are disgusting. The interesting fact is that actually taste is something learnable, and you will adopt always to anything new. And it was very surprising. I tested this out, yeah, to actually experience something which doesn't taste well for me. It wasn't oat milk, but it was something similar. And I thought, oh, it actually really works. You really get used to it, and then all of a sudden it's actually integrated in your life, and it's totally fine. And even maybe the other products, not talking about milk, doesn't taste that anymore so well because you're just not used to it anymore. So this is possible. You don't need to be just opinionated. It's really something we all can learn.
Yeah.
Rob, now coming to the end a little bit. What would be the number one thing? What maybe for our students? Imagine yourself. You mentioned about those 18-year, 19-year-old people, but imagine your younger self. Which advice would you give yourself when you're looking back?
I think, as I mentioned at the start, like, I've kind of gone on quite a long-winded journey in terms of going into the eco space. And when I went to university, I didn't ever think that was something I was going to do. So my advice to my younger self, and to any people younger who are watching this, is don't be too worried on knowing exactly what you want to do in life. I think you'll be pulled in different directions, and I would recommend trying as many different things as possible, and not being too pressurized by outside pressures, like your friends are perhaps doing this and you're doing something completely different. I think you'll find your purpose eventually, and it will take years. I'm still in the process of finding my purpose, so I'm not there yet, but I feel a lot more purposeful than I ever have. And I think I went to the university and did criminology, and I'm not using that in any shape or form now. So I think it's important to not put too much pressure on yourself to adhere to something when you're that young, and your mindset and your opinions will change, and you'll probably be exposed. Well, you will be exposed if you try different things. So you definitely try more things as well in different industries and different jobs. So just don't put much pressure yourself to know exactly what you want straight away.
Love that. That's a really great ending, Rob. Let the thing emerge for yourself and don't be afraid of it. It will all happen and unfold eventually. Rob, thank you so much for joining our discussion in the Butterfly Effect Studio. Thank you and have a great day.
That's great. Thank you so much.